I see a lot of accounts and especially a lot of business accounts where they only show the highlight reel and they only show the wins. And I get it. Like, I'm not faulting them for that because it's really fun to show that,
Sure.
when we get into a new store or, we launch a new flavor, like those are the things that are super exciting and get people, lit up about. But at the same time, I think it's equally important to also share the low points and the behind the scenes and how hard you're working and the 12, 14-hour days that you're putting in. I was watching my life pass me by. I was in my early 20s. I was living in San Francisco with my girlfriends. Like, it should have been the time of my life, right? Making bank, working in tech. Like, I was going out all the time. And yet here I was in this mental prison that I had created for myself, afraid to go out, afraid to eat anything that on the menu that wasn't like a kale salad, basically. And just, the thing was all of my thoughts, all my headspace was filled with thoughts of food, whether it was what I was currently eating, what I was planning to eat. I'm exhausted just telling you about this. And so, if finally, I think I realized I can't live like this anymore. And the only person that's going to get me out of this is me, because I'm the only person that got me into this. So ended up seeing a nutritional therapist who really took me on this journey from, being obsessed with what I was eating to complete food freedom, which, talking about it now sounds easy peasy, but I assure you it was like the most insane up and down crazy journey that I've ever gone through. And it made me much stronger for it, obviously, but so many highs and lows, so many moments of I'm falling back, I'm relapsing, and I think people, whether it be alcohol, sex addiction, whatever you're addicted to, gambling, recovery isn't linear. And it's not this like straight and narrow path. It's very twisty turny. And so I started documenting that on Instagram and, was very vulnerable. I talked about eating out of the trash. I talked about abusing diet pills, a lot of binge eating in my recovery, just because my body felt really unsafe. And just things that people don't love to talk about. It's not the sexiest topic,
Yeah.
It's not really what you want your ex-boyfriends to see you posting about on social media.
Sure.
But it was just so cathartic for me to just talk about it. And I think it helped me also heal, because the more I talked about it, the more people came out of the woodwork and they were like, you're not alone. Like, I've gone through this. Oh my God, I thought I was the only one that ate out of the trash, like random stuff. And just being more open about it made it feel less scary. Like, the more, I think it's Brene Brown, but someone has a quote, I'm totally going to butcher it, but basically like, shame and guilt can't exist and can't survive when you talk about it in the open, right? Like, the more we open up and talk about things that we're ashamed of, they're not shameful anymore. And it also brings out people that have also dealt with it. And so it creates a community. So I started doing that, gained a little bit of a following. Promise granola butter comes in at some point. And another aspect of my recovery journey was actually incorporating my fear foods back into my diet. So nut butter, peanut butter, almond butter, I was terrified of for years, just scared of the calories, scared of the fats, even though, that's like so 2014 of me. Like, fats are so cool now, and, and so started to add them back into my diet and really had a hard time digesting them. Unfortunately, years of restricting and binging, my gut health was just an absolute wreck.
Sure.
So when I started to add them back in, couldn't handle them. And I was just feeling really frustrated. I was like, I am not going to give up on my recovery. I'm not going to use this as an excuse to just, yes, I'm not going to eat that, And so I really started to think outside the box, and I started experimenting in my kitchen with some other ingredients. What can I create a spread out of that has healthy fats that taste really good? And I just had this epiphany to do an oat-based spread. And, I was really inspired by Trader Joe's cookie butter. I was inspired by Oatly doing the oat milk. And I just had this moment where I was like, no one has done this before. Oats are delicious. They're easy on the gut for most people. I'm going to try it. So started doing some early iterations in my tiny San Francisco kitchen, in my Vitamix, and it was absolute trash. We literally bought like Trader Joe's granola from the store and then some, different oils and tried to make a spread. I remember I even brought it into my tech office to my, coworkers. And I told them like, hey, this company sent me this product, because at the time they knew I was sort of like food blogging. Yeah. I was like, they sent me this product. They wanted to get your feedback. And so it was like an easy way to get really honest feedback.
Sure.
And they were like, oh, it tastes like wet sand. Like all of the reviews were so savage. And I'm like, okay, oof. Like that hurt a little, but they didn't know.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was great early feedback. So long story short, that was sort of the beginning. Worked on it as a side hustle for a year. And then my co-founder is also my boyfriend of 8 years, and then his childhood friend. So there's 3 of us. And so now we're doing it full time, living in Philadelphia. And it's been a wild ride. Sorry, that was very long-winded, but it's like hard to concise,
No, I mean,
12 years.
I think that is so incredible. I mean, I think that the fact that you have this beautiful journey and story, and, like you went through such a hardship that led you to like now this business is powerful. And I want to kind of touch on that. What is it like kind of being an entrepreneur and sharing your story and being so vulnerable and now having this brand and looking after this brand now? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think vulnerability online, especially on social, it's something that is becoming more and more common. And a lot of people have an opinion on it, whether or not people are vulnerable for the sake of clout and likes and engagement versus true, authentic vulnerability. I think it's so important either way. Like, I'm just glad that the conversation is shifting that way. I'm glad people are being more vulnerable in general. It's like the hardest word to say on a podcast. But
you're doing great.
I'm glad people are opening up because I think social media needs more of that regardless. And whether or not people are doing it for likes or not, who's to say? I'm not one to judge, but I just think I'm really excited that the conversation is going that way. And so when it comes to entrepreneurship and, showing the real, showing the ups and the downs, it's in our DNA as our company. For me personally, it's something that just, I can't imagine doing anything else on social just because, I see a lot of accounts, and especially a lot of business accounts, where they only show the highlight reel and they only show the wins. And I get it. Like, I'm not faulting them for that because it's really fun to show that,
Sure.
when we get into a new store or, we launch a new flavor, like those are the things that are super exciting and get people, lit up about. But at the same time, I think it's equally important to also share the low points and the behind the scenes and how hard you're working and the 14-hour days that you're putting in, because people actually crave that. And I find that customers, it makes them connect to us a little bit more because they feel like, number one, they respect the jar that's in their hands versus feeling like, oh, this was just some marketing machine that has a co-packer somewhere making it. And, they're not actual people behind the scenes making the product from scratch, from start to finish. And number two, they feel a part of the journey. They feel like when they see the behind the scenes, when they see what's actually going on behind this social media curtain, they actually feel more engaged and they feel a part of this community and a part of the company themselves. So I found it to be really beneficial, not just for community building, but actually for, customer loyalty, and also just being a real human. I think so many people are looking for brands to be more personified. I know, when I follow brands, if they're just posting about, their products and sales and just trying to push and sell all the time, I don't follow them because I'm like, I don't need that. Like you guys target me with your Instagram ads already. So I'm already getting that. But
Sure.
I think it's hard to balance though, as an entrepreneur, because, you're always sharing your life. You're always showing the behind the scenes. And so it's like, at what point is anything private anymore? At what point is anything sacred? When I have my weekends and I want to take time off social media, it's hard to balance that because you feel like, well, am I going to lose out on sales? This is my income. So that's kind of tricky, something that I've been just learning to navigate.